Point Hope Shipyard. On this site in 1873, Messrs. Collins and Cook established the earliest of a succession of shipyards and launched their first ship, the Royal City, in 1875. It was here that the pioneer steamship Beaver was overhauled. In 1889, when the shipyard was owned by Mr. William Turpel, the Delta, oldest operating steamboat hull afloat in British Columbia, was built. Point Hope Shipyard represents the longest active shipyard site in this province. This commemorative marker was sponsored by the Victoria branch of the BC Historical Federation and Point Hope Shipyard Company Limited, May 21st, 1989.
Well, what we have here is the Pacific Swift in Drydock. It's an annual event for the Pacific Swift and her sister ship to come out of the water and have a new hull done, paint done, anti-fouling paint, and from what I understand this year they're going to be removing the propeller shaft and replacing it. It looks like the fellows are putting in new rigging while it's here out of the water. Good opportunity to do that kind of work.
The Pacific Swift is a square topsail schooner built by Salts as a working exhibit at Expo 86 in Vancouver, British Columbia. She provides 5 to 10 days sail training programs for young people and day sails for Salts members around Vancouver Island and along the coast of British Columbia. The Pacific Swift has completed 4 offshore voyages, some of more than a year in duration. Her offshore travels have taken her to Australia and Europe, to remote communities on Easter and Pitcairn Islands, and to many other far-flung ports of call. She has logged over 100,000 deep-sea miles. She's quite a vessel, that's for sure.
When does she go back in the water?
Sorry?
When does she go back in the water?
Early next week, Monday or Tuesday.
Ah, very good. Marine Railway, Drydock, number S4295, Point Hope Maritime Limited, capacity 1,200 long tons, with turntable and spur transfer, built in 2006. Grandall Drydock Engineers Incorporated, Massachusetts, USA.
What we're looking at here is the turntable of the shipyard. The turntable is used to position the vessels at various locations on the dockyard floor, which in dockyard terminology is called the hard. Beyond the turntable we'll see a barge-light vessel, which is really called the Way, and it is located in the slip and is used to transfer the vessels back to the water. It's launch day for the Pacific Swift. Built and operated by the Sail and Life Training Society, better known as SALTS, the Pacific Swift home port is Victoria, British Columbia. We see here 98 tons of ship being loaded onto the launch barge, and she's about 111 feet long, has a beam of 20.5 feet, and draws about 10.5 feet of water underneath the vessel. She's a square topsail schooner, and under sail she reaches about 25 miles an hour, 13.5 knots. Under power, with her Zuki 6-cylinder diesel engine, she'll cruise at about 6 knots. She has 3 dories on board, and her complement is 5 crew and 30 trainees while under sail. The Pacific Swift has been loaded onto the barge and is being readied for the launch. The launch occurs when the barge goes slowly down the slip toward the water, and it's mounted on a railway line that is submerged. As we see here, the workers are preparing the disconnection from the dock of the slip and readiness for the launch. Meanwhile, aboard the vessel, the crew are preparing the anchor lines and the various rigging that is essential to the success of this launch. And as we can see, it's a hectic time aboard the Pacific Swift prior to the launch back into the water on its seasonal trek to the Drydock. While the workers aboard the vessel prepare the lines in readiness for the launch, the workers of the Point Hope shipyard prepare the barge, the launch barge, to descend the slip. Lines are being cast to make sure that the ship doesn't get away once it is floating, and is tied temporarily to the launch barge itself. As we can see here, the movement is quite slow as the barge descends down the slipway, and it's a thing that you don't want to rush, I would imagine, as we're dealing with 98 tons of mass located on this precariously positioned launch pad. In this shot, we can see the water finally, and the barge has disappeared below the surface. and the barge continues to go out into the launch area on a downward slant. Ultimately, the ship will start to float and be free of the barge itself, the launch barge. It's an interesting and slow process. So in the next round of video, we'll speed it up so that we can see the ship finally floating on the water.